Hey there, guys. It's Celine. It's Monday. I am having a huge, massive mug of ginger lemon with honey because my immune system is still not completely happy. I desperately want to come out and have a bit of a chat. Uh, there's so many things on my mind. I've been watching all sorts of content that has to do, actually, basically, it all centers, everything in my whole life at the moment centers around um, compassion, self compassion, people, myself in particular, getting around from a situation in the past where compassion just didn't seem to matter at all and everything was just about bare survival, basically. Getting from there to a life where you actually have a choice about those things and you can decide to not be as judgmental as I thought was normal or necessary. You know, those are things that are. So I've been watching a lot of content. I've found a channel that has existed for quite a long time already where people get interviewed. I've had a lot of fun with that, and it's actually kept me company being alone in the home in my house with nobody to talk to other than the internet, and having this sort of a massive nose cold. I don't have COVID, I think, as far as I can tell. Haven't had any fever or hardly, maybe a quarter of a degree at some point or other, but not bad at all. I haven't got any lung infection, so I don't think it's COVID. I can't be 100% sure until I get tested, which I just haven't bothered myself. I mean, don't follow me if you think you need testing. Of course, you should do that. For myself, it's just been that I haven't really. I was too busy feeling miserable with my nose congestion, constantly. And what's happened is that I've actually been sort of messing around with this nose cold for nearly 3 weeks now. And it's beginning to end. I can tell that my immune system is picking up, and I'm actually rather quite, confident that I'm strong enough to get rid of this. I mean, I've had these types of colds for all of my life, on and off, and it's nothing new to that extent. It's actually been less troublesome than it used to be in the past because of all the hot water I've been drinking, because of the way I treat myself. I think I'm really doing okay, but it's taking forever. So in that kind of a context, and being alone at home and with nobody other than my husband, who's really been very brave to go and get shopping and things like that. Other than that, I don't really. I really needed the input from outside, and for some reason, the YouTube algorithm has coughed up these things that have to do uh, either with people, often women, but not always, learning to, you know, be more self aware and to not let judgment or ideas that people have gotten into their heads about what humans should be like and what we should look like and how we should, the whole thing. It's becoming like there's this whole, like fashion industry and the most mainstream kinds of popular culture are still very much the same as they were in the 50s in terms of not challenging any preconceptions about women or men, hardly ever, and making money is the most important thing in the world, and nothing else matters really. Dog eat dog. Those ideas that a lot of people, me included, feel like we passed that station 40 years ago. It's never been none of that making money at all cost, and this whole kind of a survivor mentality of it's the only thing that matters is how thin you are for females, things like that. Well, that has never been something I worried about because I was never going to be able to, in terms of those ideals, I can see those ideals, and to a certain extent, my mother that I grew up with certainly believed in those ideals of beauty, of elegance, and what a woman should be like and how she should behave and all those things. She had a sort of a conscious level that she believed in, and then there was a whole lot of unconscious pain underneath that I was as aware of, to the extent that I couldn't have described any of it or couldn't really have spoken about it back in the day when I actually lived with her. But I was aware at least as much of her, her unprocessed parts of her emotional life, as much as of the as I was of what she thought were the ideals that she should really. The moment she stepped out her front door, she always felt that she had to be a lady and she had to be this, that, and the other, and she had to look a certain way. And I've always felt that it made no sense and that she was only, well, I think, when I was 16 or so, back in those days when you start thinking about those things, I suppose I felt that she was really making it harder for herself because she was an invalid and she had all sorts of problems, and she should have instead focused more on getting actual proper help. Then again, it didn't seem possible for her to get the help that she really needed, and she had a whole handful of problems, also physical and so on. And so that determined a great deal of our lives together, of my life together with my mum. Okay, my parents divorced when I was 6. After that, I've been with my mum. After that, I was with my mum, I should say, up until my 18th year when I went to university. Still got a lot of stuff in my throat, so I need to pause to cough occasionally. So the whole thing is that, to me, ideals of beauty, or how you present yourself, how you look on the outside, in terms of what kind of hair you should have, whether it should be your own color, whether you should wear makeup, or any of it, it's just gone over my head, most of that. Because I used to be very aware, I think, that there were so many other issues in life that you could address, and that it was already such a handful to just hang in there. And, well, I suppose my mother was very much a rebel as well, and I inherited quite a bit of that. Even though I don't have a rebellious nature myself, I think that's a very sort of in my life, it's very, how do you call that? There's a huge contrast going on all the time, where part of me is like, okay, so I don't agree with this, so I'm not having any of it. I don't need to be involved in this. I don't care. I don't care what I look like. You can all go, sort of, And on the other hand, I want to be everybody's mate. I want everybody to be mates. I hate conflict from the bottom of my very roots, and so it's the end up, sitting at home. So yeah, it has done me the world of good to be able to watch a lot of people. I will link down below at least one of the channels that I've been watching. The Style Like You channel has been a huge eye-opener, I think, where it's all of a sudden it's about who people are for themselves, and how they can be themselves, and how they've had to fight to get away from the assumptions that they grew up with, or that they were working in, all those kinds of things. So that's been quite a support. I've actually found this one person who was interviewed on that channel a while ago, I think during the COVID, the actual lockdown period, somewhere in 2020 or 2021. And they have this, I think she's a she though. You can say she for her. Even though that's a bit of an issue at the moment, for a lot of people. So you tend to just drop in the they into they mode the whole time. I still think she has a lot of value as a pronoun. So I definitely identify as a she, with all the all the darkness that comes with that. So mote it be. Let's as above, so below. So there. This person I found, they actually make these gorgeous drawings on. They show them on Facebook, and so she's got a T-shirt that I'm ordering as I sit here. It's coming to me, and she's quite a special person. I just wonder from my own practice lately, with my Tumor practice in particular, I notice a lot of change in perspective about what people are really like. It's like you get to see little bits, not a huge amount normally, really, but from Tumor, you get, from doing Tumor enough, you get to a point where you can actually sort of see people as Russian dolls. And there's layers inside them that I don't need to see straight through everybody. Okay, because I don't think that's appropriate to begin with. But I could often, I could just tune in to whatever that person is having going on inside them and pick up on it, like with no effort. It's more of an effort to block it out and to go sit on the normal level and have the sort of a regular standardized version discussion conversation with people without going under the surface. It's very difficult to not go under the surface. But I am used to that. I am used to nobody really wanting, like, genuine exchange, really. So then I'm not going to give them a lot of argument about that. I'm not going to force people. I have occasionally tried that, to force a person to be, super honest about something. It never works. So you have to deal with people at the sort of a level that they're at. It doesn't even have to do with authenticity that much, or with honesty, because they are being honest. Hey Puss, she has something to say about that. Talk about being authentic. Hey Cat, you think it's time for dinner already? You're very early with your whole dinner thing. She won't let me pick her up, I think, because to show you my little red and white, ginger and white. Oh, you're all rained up. You're wet. Hey, pussycat? Yes, you're lovely. I love my cat. She shows up whenever she wants to. So where was I? Yeah, the whole authenticity thing. It's not that people aren't, or that they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes. I mean, I know they are. They also do that to themselves 90% of the time. And I have done it 99.9% of the time up until 5 years ago. And I still don't know what happened that changed everything for me in terms of authenticity. You're as authentic. I think it's kind of part of the human riddle, that we're in. That you always believe that you are as authentic as you can be at that moment. And that can mean a million things to different people, things like that. So it's not even that, but there's Russian dolls inside, and there's I can see a lot of the time, where what I'm getting at really is that there's a personal nature inside everyone, male, female, child, elderly, doesn't matter what position you're in, none of it has to have, doesn't matter in the slightest where, what you're doing or how you're thinking or where you're from or any of it. And there's a personal nature that often doesn't get up for air, like at all. And if your life, for lack of a better word, sucks because you're constantly in trouble, either health wise or with people or with work or whatever, it's because there's, of course, well, it's easy to say in general, but there's a kind of a misalignment between one's actual personal nature and the qualities of that that's not getting enough air to breathe, and the shell, the outside mask of, I'm in this job and I've had this history and I've had these parents and blah blah, things like that. There can be a huge gap between the mask and the actual person. So yeah, I thought that was kind of, those are things that I've sort of thought and been aware of for years now. In my own case, I know that it's been a whole lot of work getting to be who I really am, to the extent that I can actually. I just sort of, nowadays with Tumor, what Tumor does is it draws your energy back inside. The moment you're not inside yourself, you feel it. I get still a lot of moments where, for example, I've seen too much YouTube content, or I've watched movies or whatever else that I've been really, sort of connected to or involved for some reason, and I lost track of who I really am. So I have to, when I'm lying in my bed in the evening and it's all dark and quiet, I have to go like, okay, where the hell was I? What have I done? Okay, I've watched this thing, I've seen that, I made dinner, then I've seen that, we talked about that, and I've seen the other thing. Okay, I can see more or less how that sort of goes all to this pile of things. Some of it is just entertainment, doesn't matter, it can still completely drag me out of myself. And then, okay, so I've got that sorted. Then I remember before that I was actually doing the other thing, and I was knitting or something, or doing another creative thing. And I was journaling, and then I wrote this 1.5 line that I actually felt was kind of important. And the moment my active memory comes back to that single idea, suddenly it's like a couple of things fall into place. Everything falls into... I need to do that myself. It's like a mental realignment exercise. Otherwise, I just go... I sort of go... Everything becomes a grey fog. It just doesn't get processed anymore. It feels like. I don't know. So it has something to do with that. There's a lot of that kind of thing that I feel like I need to do at the moment in order to be as close to, knowing what I'm supposed to be in with. Whether I'm sick or not doesn't really change anything, And I suppose there's really phases where you just have to, at some point, decide, okay, so I've seen enough YouTube, I've seen enough movies, I've seen enough stuff, I've done enough reading. It's time to do some output again. So I was going to show you, see whether this shows up at all. I made a very happy drawing. The colors are going to be completely awful. This is actually a gray, greenish gray paper. Kind of cardboardy, quite thick paper. It's really pretty to use, especially with white pencils and inks and stuff like that. So this is supposed to represent a fabric that just sort of came up in my mind as a sort of a consequence of watching all those videos about people each having their own struggles to, become who they really want to be. And what it involves a lot of undressing, literally, on the channel as well. It also involves sort of unscrewing one's brain from. I'm hoping that if I turn this around somehow, there's gonna be a moment where you can see. Yes, there they are. Some of the metallic paints that have gone in there. So you won't be able to see it properly, and I should show it again in the sunshine sometime when you actually can see the colors. But each of those blobs is supposed to represent either a person or a moment in this whole series, a whole fabric of moments in your own personal experience or whatever. And they're all kind of linked together through this fabric. But there's a whole lot of, in each of those blobs, there's like a ton of layers of ink and pencil, and then more ink, and oil pastel goes over the top of it in 2 colors. So you get, in real life, you actually get a sense of it being really like a 3D kind of a, fuzzy, beautiful, fuzzy pink pills sitting in a transparent, translucent, shiny fabric like that. So that it comes off different from what it was actually in my mind originally, but that's okay. It came out as good enough, fine. Maybe that's really a symbol of life, as life is for me at the moment, is that there's no ideal way of having your life. You can have the next best thing, which sort of sits fairly close to what you really feel comfortable with, is my humble opinion as to how you should lead your life, is to have as little of a struggle as possible, to just, I have spent so long conforming to everybody's, to the extent that I didn't dress like people expected me to, but I tried to be harmless always, and to stay out of the way of people with strong opinions and people whose MO it was to always tell you what to think, what your priorities are supposed to be. That's a big one. What your priorities are supposed to be. But the whole thing actually comes down to, where am I at? 22. Okay. Slightly. I'm going to come back to my safety list again. So 2 weeks ago, I think it was, there was this Teal Swan little video that came by where they were talking about the safety list. I started doing that whole thing, and then I got sick, but under the surface I had already done a whole lot of work, and as I was contemplating, it was so beautiful to be doing, and I'm so grateful I've gone through this, because as I was contemplating things that make me genuinely feel safe, I had to check what that really feels like. I sort of had to emotionally, non-verbally define for myself what safe means. Okay, so it already became a bit more of a 3D, three-dimensional kind of a feeling. It's not like safe is the same as safe the whole time. It kind of grew into this crystal kind of a shape with sides and facets to it. And there's things that are safe because they empower me and they make me feel stronger. There's a lot of safe emotion nowadays for me in being able to do this kind of a video where I can just jabber on about whatever the hell I like, and there's going to be a couple of people out there who find this of interest, and it's useful, and I've got a ton of people that I listen to, so there's a whole lot of actual words going back and forth over the internet, and I've learned so much that actually sort of after the fact gives me a sense of, yes, of being safer than ever because I'm stronger than ever. But it's not the same. And there's strength, and there's confidence, and there's feeling safe, and they're different things. So I was going on about that quite a bit. It's been quite a discovery process and an adventure, getting all that sort of mapped out and charted out. And I've been writing, in my notebook. I made this special notebook that I got for, that sort of contains all the important things. And a lot of thinking about what makes you feel safe inside. There's a couple of challenges, of course. If we've had an unsafe life, then you need to address that. You need to sort of position that. You need to be in a position where you can position that for yourself, right? You can't just, expect whatever to happen as a result of your work. It does itself. It takes its own time, and you sort of make this work for yourself. But what happened for me was that it sort of developed. It grew arms and legs, and it went in all sorts of directions. And I have changed as a result. In a couple of weeks' time, I've just felt like I have so much more perspective. There's been a whole new perspective regarding my relationship with my dad when I was a toddler, like a small kid, with him, that has come added onto my life, that was always there. And I've been able to sort of reinterpret quite a bit of my experiences nowadays and my attitude in life and my preferences and things like that, with music and because there was a huge contrast between my parents, between my mother, who always proclaimed at the top of her voice that anything my dad wanted or said or expressed towards around me as a small child, she always blamed him for being too permissive. He was wrong in his approach towards me from A to Z. There was nothing he could do right. Then again, my mother carried a huge cross in her life, which I think killed her in the end, that made her sick and killed her, where she, so in her opinion about my dad, showed the 100% the authoritarian upbringing that she'd had, that she was complaining against all her life. So there's this huge contrast between you should have authority towards a kid, you should tell a kid what to do, what to think, and you should protect them, because she was massively protective towards me. Then again, she hoisted me from the day I was born, basically, all across Europe. For 18 years, I've just been piggybacking on her life, really. Never really had a life of my own. Went to school, got dropped to, sent off to school in regardless whichever kinds of circumstances. And other people might have thought, well, that isn't really the safest way to have this kid have a life, I never got around to knowing any people. I never got to be part of anything for very long, because we moved house every 2 or 3 years. Actually, one every year, often for a period of time. So I've always felt like, well, I felt this massive, because I was terrified of her, so I had to be super loyal. And she was terrifying because she was really authoritarian, which she'd inherited 100% from her own parents. One of which I have never known. My grandmother was also a super authoritarian woman who I don't think, ever disagreed with authority position people anywhere in her life, except that she got put into a concentration camp, of course. So there was a whole lot of anger and all of this, okay, with the contrast between those two sets of ideas. Now, because of the safety, sort of a reconstruction that's going on in my brain, everything sort of falls neatly into one of those categories. And I can see how I've been carrying around judgment, okay? People's judgment, and like try to exist for myself, which seems to be still completely impossible, in between two judgments that mutually exclude each other. Okay, because the other guy is by definition 100% wrong 100% of the time. And same on this side. As a kid, you grow up with those two, you know? And you have no place to exist. And I still, because I'm a child, I identify with both of them. So, it has not been easy. But a lot of it is kind of in my experience, okay? I can pick out the bits that belong in the one category, pick out the bits that belong in the other category, and see them also merely as categories. And as if, okay, so it's like a period going to school. I went to this particular school of this contrast for 50 years. And now I'm here. And it's over. I think. You know, yeah, I suppose I can say it's over. Being in that. Being forced to live either or, you know? Or not at all. Actually being forced to not live. Because you can't comply with one without betraying the other, and so on and so forth. So that's what I kind of had to say. I actually managed again to say quite a bit more because it's all very much been in my mind. All this stuff has been sort of rolling around my brain for the past weeks, really, in one form or another. Thank you so much for watching. I think I'm going for the bath now and bring the rest of my big mug of salute along, and maybe bring a comic or something to the bath, because, you know, getting the brain to simmer down after all this. Thank you for being here, you guys, and it means a whole lot to me. Oh, it means so much. We can actually talk to the world. All of us, we can talk to each other. And you can talk, and it means the end of a lot of the power play and the dominance and because a lot of that is based in silence, right? So yeah, all the best. I really wish you all the best, and I will be back during the week somewhere, I suppose. It will be a matter of getting my immune system to be really happy with itself again. So yeah, they're promising us a lot of rain this week. So that's a change, because we've had lots of sunshine, which was awesome. Didn't solve all my problems either. So yeah. Thank you for watching, you dears. See you next time. Okay, bye for now.